Hey, this is David Lee Roth. Don't touch that dial. We're hopping and bopping and popping, and the best bet for the boss beat at the top of the pop smash. Gold with the timely tune for those with the textured taste. Right here. Shut up, Dave. It's time for Metal Express Radio. Well, what I do, go ahead and put your microphone on, we'll talk. Well, what I do is instead of taking your candle and burning it at both ends, you don't burn it in the middle. You take a blowtorch to your candle, and you get 19 times the light in 1/3 the time, which is kind of what we paid for tonight. You know, that and 20 saw. You want to try and do what I do for a living? It's easily doable. It's not genetic at all. It's conditional. You can get used to this. Just pick about 20, 25 of your favorite songs. Play tennis. Sing them all while you're playing tennis at the top of your little voice, okay? And in between, tell kind of semi-funny jokes.
How come you don't share this with more Europeans? I mean, you're just doing 4 shows this time.
Oh, we're just starting. You know, the real season is obviously in the spring and summer. And I would love dearly, you know, to travel everywhere. I'll go everywhere that'll have me, and some who won't. Still thinking about it. And we're just starting. This is part of the media beginnings here. You know, when you play here, then the rest of the world begins to take notice outside the United States. The United States is probably 1/3 of the world, and this is the rest of it.
So that's actually your focus now. You released your latest album last year, and now you're on tour again. Is that what you're doing now, touring?
Well, I'm fortunately one of those people who wrote, da-da-da-da, if you stop Beethoven in the street tomorrow, and he said, you guys, I've actually been alive again for 2 months. And I've wrote the best symphony you have ever heard in your entire life. You're going to die when you hear this. We go, isn't that great? It's great. Do you still play da-da-da-da? You're going to play that tomorrow, right? Because I'm coming tomorrow. And I'm one of those guys who was lucky enough to write a few of those. You know, I've got a dozen of those tunes. They're as familiar as that, you know, Beethoven's Fifth, if not even more so. And it's not dependent anymore on a single song or a single record or, you know, now it's been a number of summers here, and it's all familiar. And then you come to relive. I saw you back your youth. Even if you're 20 years old, you're familiar with this stuff. You grew up around this. And I sell you back those times, big glass bowl of your memories, good, bad, in the middle, and we show contempt for all of it. Isn't that rock and roll?
Your latest album was mostly filled with covers. Do you still write songs all the time? Can we expect more new material from David Roth in the future, near future, hopefully?
My life is a video. Why stop now? Sooner or later, they'll have to carry me off the football field on the back of my uniform, you know. But yeah, I write songs routinely. I work with all kinds of people. There are a number of ways that you can do cover tunes. You can do one way, which is let's get it right. Try and show some faith or reverence, you know, to the style at least. Or you can take it past where you found it. You know, I'm thoroughly convinced we played that Beatle tune. You know, I knew what the Beatles were reaching for, but I don't think they got it. We did. Well, whether it's true or not doesn't mean anything. You got to think that way. Nobody got anywhere by going halfway up the mountain, man.
Your solo career definitely kicked off with 2 covers that did very well. Is that what you would do again with your latest album?
I think that it's the idea that if the music sounds good, it is good. And it's not so much whether you wrote it or not. That only became popular, in the 60s when we all started imitating black blues guys, you know. Until then, they were the only ones who wrote and performed their own music. If you think about it, a specialist in writing songs may actually be the preferable way. If that's all that you do, then you'll do the hell out of it, you know. Today, that is the vogue. If you think about it in pop radio, whether it's come on, Dave, you know, think about it. It's Justin Timberlake's or, you know, the Britney Spears's and so forth. They don't write their own material. And conversely, on the other end of the spectrum, if it's old school, same thing. I think that if it sounds good, it is good. And if you have a specific signature sound to your voice or to your way you play, then you characterize it yourself. Now, even if you sing Happy Birthday, go, huh, that's Dave.
You did this DLR band album like 5 or 6 years ago. That was a fucking great album. What happened there? I mean, it wasn't distributed very well. It rocks, but What happened?
Oh, what happened to hundreds of other bands. What you have now is the internet. And, record stores are bankrupting, going out of business routinely, at least in the United States. And our album was out and around just as the internet started to take hold. I'm all for the internet. I think the only downside of it is that unknown bands really don't get known. It's hard enough to take trouble with the people that you're familiar with. These are all parts and parcels of music that comes and goes in the marketplace. That's a record that we may market in Europe at some point in time. But it's all part of the same performance theater.
Sure. We were just discussing after the show tonight, it's about time that we get some live from Deadly Roth on CD or DVD. I mean, you haven't done a live album.
Sooner than later, I will do that. I've been offered unbelievable amounts of money to go to Las Vegas and do a review with a dozen girls of California Girls and Just a Gigolo. Call it California Girls. And in the context of something like that, then you have high-speed, low drag. You have something that appeals to a really broad-based audience. When I was in Van Halen, we always designed it as opposed to being an act that was very dependent on a specific time period or a neighborhood. It was for everybody. If you smoke, drink, and fist fight with loved ones, you probably belong to us.
When do you think this will happen, this Vegas show? I mean, I read about it for some time, and you're working on it, and have you got a date? Or?
Oh, we're not working on anything right now. This is the road. This is travel, and we'll do this probably until, next Christmas. We'll travel the world and see the rest of Europe and Australia, Southeast Asia, etc. And that will take thoroughly at least until the fall. After that, anything is possible. I'm not a workaholic, but I do manage to accomplish something every day. Doing nothing means a lot to me.
In your biography, Chris from the Heat, I read that a few years ago, and that is great reading. You wrote that your editor took away 1,000 pages or so. Will that ever be published? I mean, the rest of the stories?
A lot of what I've done is based on the books I consumed as a kid. As a little kid, my favorite authors were Mark Twain, Jack London. And then, as a big kid, it was Hunter Thompson, P.J. O'Rourke, and a variety of different. It didn't occur to me at the time, but I know now that these were folks who went out and actually did something and then wrote about it. It was reportage. It wasn't so much novelists. It wasn't so much poetry. The poetry was in the attempt, especially if they failed. And that's the way I've always characterized what I write and what I do as a musician. The next books that come up, absolutely I'll write something, but they're more stories of if we run into each other at the local drinking establishment.
Okay. So we want to see what didn't get published with the Chris from the Heat book. I mean, the leftovers.
There's really no leftovers. It's a whole book complete in itself. A lot of my fascination is with the history that surrounds me. Take the traveler and the tourist. The essential difference is travelers don't know where we're going. Tourists don't know where he is. I always know exactly where I am. And I'm fascinated with all of the little details. There's no such thing as trivia to me. That big jet airplane is held together with lots of little nuts and bolts. And I'm fascinated with the nuts and bolts of where we are at any given time. Whether it's shoes and haircuts, whether it's music, the cars we drive, or preferably the cars we crash.
We're just discussing what happened. You were on tour with Sammy Hagar, and there's been a lot in press about that. What happened? What's your side of the story? Too much competition or too big egos just crashing?
I think there was some competition between myself and Sam Hagar. Initially, I had said to Sam, look, we will do all of the songs that is a retrospective of one of the best barbecue bands in history of the sport, Van Halen. I said, I'll do my 20 songs, you do 4 or 5. And, I can't get anything past you guys. I thought it was late enough to try. Okay. Whether Sam opens up or cools him down, I don't care. I had a good time. And at worst, I feel like the older brother holding Sam by the top of his head, and he's swinging his little arms at me, but they don't reach. I won't tell him you laughed.
Are you tired of all the speculations about a Van Halen reunion? Do you care about all the speculations, or do you follow the press or what's being said about that?
I'm delighted to have been a part of something that is so memorable and is so current. I think we're more popular now as a band, the Van Halen band, than we were when we were together. And yeah, that's it. And I'm part of that. I was one of the architects. If the Van Halen band was ever to do a reunion, superb, but I wouldn't hold my breath. One of the things that you can really not only duplicate, but take better than where you found it is the instrumentalists. If you think about it, the London Philharmonic Orchestra is actually a Tchaikovsky tribute band. Tchaikovsky's been dead for many years, and so is most of his rhythm section. So why do we keep going to the concert? Because an instrumentalist can take the music beyond where they find it. The one thing that you cannot duplicate ever is the sound of a human voice and the larcenous background that makes me sound this way. The way I sound is a construct of everything I've read, everything I've experienced, everything I refuse to admit I experienced, perhaps more importantly.
So that the band you got on the road now, they're your permanent band. It's a stable lineup, and they will follow you, and they've been there for some time.
I always think like a dog. Dogs think like forever, right? You feed your dog. As soon as it's done, it goes, hey, I thought we were going to eat forever. You say, no, we're going to take a walk. You take a walk, you come home. As soon as you get home, the dog looks at you and the look says, I thought we were going to walk forever. And on and on. No, we're going to go in the car. Well, I thought we were going to drive forever. That's how I think, really. And, with any given band, any given group of musicians, the people that I try to surround myself with are very ambitious. They're very enthusiastic and belligerent people.
Absolutely. Did you watch the current hard rock scene closely? I mean, do you listen to new modern hard rock, and what do you think about that?
What I see when I listen to new modern hard rock is pretty girls in very expensive underwear. In the United States, the very refined art form of striptease is more popular than it's ever been in the history of the sport. And I qualify as a judge now, not just a participant. I no longer compete. And you hear nothing but the latest and the greatest of whatever is the most hard rock, especially if it's guitar-oriented. You're going to hear the Limp Bizkits, the POD. You're going to hear, Coldplay. You're going to hear the really trenchant stuff. You're going to hear the Metallica and so forth. And I listen to everything. If not research, then out of just enthusiasm. And I take a sporting bias to it. Going boo is often more fun than going yay. So let's go listen to something. Oh, that sucks. Play it again. Sometimes talking about rock and roll, especially hard rock, is more fun than actually listening to it. So let's see. Was Def Leppard actually hard rock? I don't know.
Not anymore.
I'll see you in an hour. Was Bananarama alternative? Oh, there's another hour.
You're a very, colorful person. I was thinking about the Osbournes. Could you be a part of a reality series like that? I mean, have cameras at home to show everybody what the hell you're doing in your private life?
Most of what I do in my private life, if I constructed it in a video, you would think was fabricated. You would think, nah, that was made for the video. What makes the Osbournes work is that they're so painfully normal, is that their normal day-to-day is really familiar. It's their appearance that makes it absolutely novel. Nobody's dad looks like Ozzy, if you're lucky. And it's hilarious because they themselves have a sense of humor about it. Some people say, do you have advice to somebody? You got advice for young people, Dave? Sure. Laugh to win. Laugh to win. And I think the Osbournes do that. The absolute star of that show is, of course, his wife, Sharon. There was a very famous show, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, in the United States during the 50s and 60s called The Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason. He was a very famous comedian who weighed about 300 pounds. And he played the part of a brainless bus driver who made $60 a week and lived in the Bronx in New York City. And his wife, Alice, routinely saved him every week from some brainless get-rich-quick scheme that he constructed with his upstairs neighbor, Mr. Ralph Cramden. I liked Ozzy better when he was Jackie Gleason.